Probably like most people that get into firearms, it was strictly personal in the beginning. I had a difficult process acquiring one myself and decided that next time I would just make it easier for myself. And then what I found is there's a lot of other people that had felt the same way I did, that it was a difficult process and they were looking for an easier way to do it. And so how does our process work sort of start from finish? One of two things. Typically people will go online or call us. Either option works. Some people prefer to talk to someone live just to kind of understand the process. So that's definitely available. So we have a whole call center and people just start firing away questions like, here's the calibers I want to cover. Then we walk the customer through the process over the phone. We tell them, hey, we're going to create a free gun trust for you specific to you and your state. And then we're going to transfer the silencer ownership from us, the dealer, to your trust. And then we're going to send it to our location in the state where you live. And then we're going to mail it to your front door. And we can do all that over the phone in like 5 minutes. We just enter in the data that's required. We generate the forms. Those forms are then sent to the customer for them to electronically sign. And then they come back. We also send fingerprint cards and we also send ink. So they'll do their fingerprints at home, mail them back to us. We scan those fingerprints in. They'll send us a picture of themselves, a little 2x2 photo. Once we generate all the paperwork, we submit it to the ATF. And then we're going to send monthly updates to let them know how it's going in the process, kind of timelines we're seeing and how long it's going to take. Then once it's approved, we typically send them a text and an email. And we tell it's approved, and we have to do, of course, the paperwork on the back end to be able to ship it to them. And then we just ship it to their front door. To go back to the online process, very similar. So if they want to just buy from, the comfort of their home, they could just key in what they want. And then once they purchase, they're going to get an email asking for more specific information for us to generate their trust, to generate their ATF paperwork. And then again, we send the paperwork to them digitally for e-signature. And then the process kind of meets up back where it was with if they had bought it over the phone. I think one thing people sort of fall apart on is they're like, how can you sell it to me? I'm in, this state really far from you, because our headquarters is in South Dakota. We've got a 45,000 square foot building there where we house our inventory and we have all our staff. We have, I think we're up to 142 employees currently. And we have licensed locations. We have an FFL in every state where silencers are legal, and we have W-2 employees at every one of those locations. So after it's approved, we mail it to that location, and our location manager there generates all the paperwork and handles everything needed from a compliance standpoint to get it to the person's front door. So we started out as a dealer of silencers, suppressors, and the honest truth is, it sort of hit me in the face when I was at a gun show in Pierce, South Dakota. I found that everyone that came up to the booth was looking for something light. They were looking for something quiet. They were looking for a hunting application. And back when we started, 2005, really the only thing available was more of a tactical setup. And I could just tell the customer was not being offered an option they wanted. So that's what I looked for, basically a manufacturer to partner with that was already making them. They could make a few changes that we wanted and sort of accommodate our geography where we had a lot of varmint hunters where they did want it quiet and they wanted it light. So it wasn't necessarily a way to try to have a stronger control in the market. It was just a way to actually provide the customer with what they needed. The other reality with the whole silencer and suppressor transfer process, years ago when you would acquire a suppressor from a manufacturer, typically you would go to the wholesaler, that took 3 months. And then from the wholesaler to the dealer, it took 3 months. So to have a 6 months built into a process before you even get the product in hand to sell, it was almost impossible. So by having them made, then we could track what serial numbers were coming. We had more control of the process and just really the legal parts so that you could get them quicker. It's easier turn for the customers.
Well, we really started getting into suppressor testing, 4 or 5 years ago. And basically what it boils down to, we decided to do a modified version of what the military does. So the way that we test a suppressor is we have a host gun, which we do a 5-shot average with a decibel meter, finding the volume of that gun to serve as a unsuppressed baseline. Then we attach the suppressor to it and run the protocol again. And then, that gives us a comparison of how much mitigation is actually taking place. So in both cases, we take a 5-shot average, both with and without the suppressor, with leaving a minimum of 3 minutes between each shot just to allow some cooling to occur. And also we make a point with both with and without the suppressor to take data at 2 points, both about 2 feet off of the muzzle, and then also about 6 inches off of the shooter's ear. And then that gives us, some practical data, not only for the shooter himself, what he's going to be hearing, but people surrounding him as well. This is a Banish 30, which is a 30 cal rifle suppressor. This is a 100% titanium suppressor, which is kind of an oddity on the market, which practically speaking means this suppressor is going to weigh considerably less than a comparable suppressor of the same length. And then this design is actually also modular. So you can run it as the long version, which uses all 8 baffles, or you can actually shorten it to use a 6 baffle configuration. And that really gives you the versatility of, am I valuing effectiveness or am I valuing handiness? It is very rare within the industry for a rifle suppressor to be user disassemblable. For the most part, they're sealed cans and you can't get in there and do any cleaning yourself. But one of the really interesting things about this line is every single suppressor in their line can be taken apart very easily by the end user. You can slide the baffles out, clean them yourself, put them back in, and that way you just know every time you go to the range that this thing is as clean as possible, and that means it can be as effective as possible because suppressors get less effective as they get dirty.
As long as you're 21 or older, you can own a silencer in America, federally. But then, of course, some states have made laws that are stronger where you can't own a silencer in those states. So the best analogy I've come up with, it's a title transfer. So if you own a truck, it's very similar. The only difference is you get to leave with the truck when you buy it, but with a silencer, you don't. So with the silencer purchase, it's a title transfer. The feds have it underneath my EIN. So the federal records show me as the owner. In simplest terms, I'm asking the feds to transfer the ownership, the title of that silencer from me to that customer. And like I said, since we provide a free gun trust, almost every customer utilizes that benefit. So the title's transferring from us to their trust. I would say when I first started doing it in 2005, most people thought they were illegal. And even now I find when I go to gun shows and other events, people think they're illegal. But as long as they're properly acquired and purchased, they're treated just like another firearm. So to follow this analogy through with the transfer, once it's transferred and approved and the $200 tax stamp is paid, like we submit all the paperwork to the feds for the title transfer along with the $200. We also provide the feds the required fingerprints and same kind of information you would fill out on a 4473 when you buy a firearm for them to do a background check through NICS, through the FBI, through the federal databases. And as long as you can buy a firearm, you're going to be approved to buy a silencer. And then to do the final transfer, of course, we have to do a 4473 because that's underneath the Gun Control Act. And anytime there's a transfer physical from dealer to end user of a firearm, customer has to fill out the 4473. So essentially, we still do that. So it's a confusing process because it involves NFA, National Firearms Act, and the Gun Control Act. But the beauty is we spent the last 16 years truly just immersing ourselves, and we've completely streamlined it. It's very turnkey. If you're going to buy a firearm that's going to take you 9 to 10 months to get, and you're going to want service afterwards, because you're going to call me in 3 years and say, hey, my son's now 18, I want to add him to this trust, how do I do it? Or when your spouse calls me and says, hey, unfortunately, he's passed away, what do we do with these? You're going to call the people, that's all we do. And I feel like that's the value we bring to the table. And it's just going to be a much better experience. It's going to be smoother. And the fact that we're licensed in every state where they're legal and we can mail it to your front door, think of us as your local silencer dealer.